I especially want to get into your point number 8, Paul, where you write that this fake socialist inability to grasp the necessity of revolution. RC peers within and outside of RU4AR consistently, and in your carefully considered opinion, rightly call out democratic socialists for their pitifully tame commitment to incremental and economistic reformism, and their refusal to break with the underlying system and parties of capitalism and imperialism. This ties into their refusal to even consider the profound divide in this country and the potential therein. So I think this is actually a very important thing for us to discuss. It gets to the heart of the stakes of this right now that are extremely, extremely serious in the negative and extremely positive in the potential. And all of this is to stand in the way of that positive potential, intentionally or not.
Well, there's a fundamental division between RevComs, a lot of people refuse fascism on one hand, and what passes for a left nowadays, which seems to be a sort of combination on one hand of mild milquetoast trade unionism that thinks socialism is collective bargaining agreements and electric cars. This kind of soft social democracy that doesn't really want to rock the boat. And then also this kind of very hyper-identitarian wokesterism, which is really focused on who's the most oppressed individuals in America and all of that. And then, the second group of people, these wokesters and these economists and these incremental trade unionists who call themselves socialist. I'm not sure they know what socialism actually is. It's supposed to be a revolutionary movement putting society on the path to communism and decisively introducing a proletarian dictatorship that stops counter-revolution and lets us actually get past the type of society, capitalism, imperialism, that's literally murdering livable ecology and raising the existential question of whether species can survive at all. There's the hatred of actual revolutionaries for saying that is so extreme that even any hint of participation in a movement for something as basic and as long-standing and as many of us thought mainstreamed as a 50-year constitutional right to an abortion can't be tolerated and has to be called out and has to be kicked out and has to be eviscerated and perhaps this is a recognition that these existential questions that we raise aren't going away anytime soon, and they're ashamed about that, and they're ashamed of the positions that they take, and they'd rather not have this feeling that they have, this sense that they have of their noses being rubbed in the excrement of their own revisionism and incrementalism. The reality is that the RevComs and other radical leftists participating in Rise Up for Abortion Rights, understood as a united front organization, and not requiring ideological agreement across the board, not requiring people to agree with every aspect of Marxism or Maoism or Vakianism or whatever you want to call it, but have the audacity to identify as Marxists and communists and followers of Baba Vakian. And not put a muzzle over their mouths when they do that. We heard our, my fellow Refuse Fascism board member, Sunsara Taylor, and this is counter to the accusation that the Rise Up is in a front group. Front groups people operating in front groups hide their identities. Sunsara would get up and say right off the bat, I'm a revolutionary communist, I'm a follower of Baba Vakian. There's no fronting about it at all. It's just honest. And they didn't want to hear any of that. They don't want to see any honest communists, people not willing to swallow their ideology and their beliefs and their morality and their values and their revolutionary politics. We're supposed to just shut up and not point out that, yes, beneath the question of patriarchy is we think the question of capitalism and imperialism, and intimately related to that, the problems of Christian fundamentalism, fascism, that Avakian and others have written about. We're supposed to shut up about that. So that's the lesson here. Don't bring any of your radicalism to United Front movements, and we're not going to do that. Revolutionaries aren't going to do it.
Look, exactly what you said. The tremendous hatred, the visceral animus towards Bob Avakian is fundamentally an animus to breaking from this system and the privilege that it is able to distribute on the entire population within this country, even as there are people who are horribly oppressed within this country relative to the rest of the world. It is a deep form of social chauvinism. But the fact of the matter is that if you have massive struggle that's sustained and determined, and you have revolutionaries within it who are bringing out what is the cause of these problems. Where is this? Why is there fascism growing in America? Why is there this Christian fundamentalism in the context of globalized crisis? Why is all these things? Why 2020, beautiful uprising in response to the murder of George Floyd? Police are still murdering with impunity. Almost all the reforms have been washed away, and just a bunch of yak going on in small circles of wokesters, busy bickering among themselves as to who's the most oppressed, instead of seeing the actual situation that. And actually not just bickering among themselves, but trying to poison the well of the possibility of people actually uniting and questioning deeply, why are things the way they are and how could they be radically different? And why, exactly as you said, you need a different form of rule to be able to institute a new economic and political system whereby the social products that people create together are not appropriated by just a handful of people for the benefit of those people and for the misery of the majority, but where they're actually distributed. And then people can go to work on all these problems that afflict humanity. And we're at this moment, which is, a recurring theme in this show, but it's an urgent theme. And all of this and the attacks on BA, as you said before, without engagement with what he's actually done, because you used a big word, Paul, and I think it's important, a proletarian dictatorship, but it's a different kind of dictatorship that's been developed in the new communism by Bob Avakian that is in a constitution for a new socialist republic. See, and this is something that these people haven't even cracked the book, looked at it, found out what it's about and how liberating it actually is. And the other thing they want to hide, I'm supposed to be interviewing you, but I'm saying a few things here. The very fact that they are defending objectively this system is an evidence of the dictatorship, as you were bringing out very livingly, of the capitalist class that actually rules today. These are important things for people to understand, and that's what lies underneath why these leftists, who aren't really left at all, if there is any meaning to it, as you said, are attacking the revolutionaries. So
there's related to this, there's a kind of, particularly in DSA circles and Bernie Bro circles and Bernie Sanders circles, there's a kind of economistic workerism that isn't able to take seriously and radically and understand in revolutionary terms questions of gender and patriarchy and questions of race and racial oppression, and sort of automatically sort of dismisses those topics and it sort of ends up thinking of them as sort of inherently bourgeois divide and rule topics. What they're not understanding, because they haven't read Avakian and Revcoms and other people on the left, is that they have a kind of understanding of both of those issues, and of gender and of patriarchy, within an anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist perspective, and actually have an argument about how you can't solve racial oppression and you can't solve patriarchy at the end of the day under capitalism and its evil twin or partner, imperialism. And that's just the kind of thing you'd have to read the guy. You'd have to read the Revcom website to find that out. And it's fascinating to see intellectuals automatically dismissing, particularly Avakian, just immediately, with no curiosity whatsoever. And there's all these accusations of cult. And, I remember my first engagements with Revcoms and our spheres, it's like, why do you talk about Avakian so much? But I at least retained a curiosity about why someone would be considered so influential that led me to go read a number of books and essays and interventions and actually find out. And this is, you're not seeing any of this from the left attackers of Avakian. There's no curiosity. and many of them call themselves intellectuals, and that is profoundly anti-intellectual, to say the very least. And if they dug deeply, they'd find a lot of really actually intellectually fascinating material about and a very distinctive and unique understanding of American history.
But we need a different kind of culture. Exactly when you're talking about curiosity, intellectual curiosity, debate, principled debate. So this conversation here, somebody want to make an argument that patriarchy and capitalism aren't tied together? Fine, make the argument. You want to make an argument that the attack on abortion rights was not fundamentally aimed at a Christian fascist subordination of women, and as such will sweep in and is going to sweep in LGBTQ rights and trans rights and all of this. Make that argument. Let's discuss it. Let's debate it while standing together. But see, there's no interest in that because there's an abhorrence for actually fundamental change here. And this is of the people who run these things. But there, of course, there's a lot of what we want to do here. And just to wrap this up, I want to encourage everybody who's checking this out, who maybe was part of things and fell back and got demoralized both by the defeat and also by these idiotic and baseless attacks, as well as new people who just don't like it. You've got to get more deeply into the work. This is a very urgent time, the work of Bob Avakian. This is, and because of the very reasons that Paul Street just said, because it's actually dealing with the substance of the problem we face and the solution that is possible and urgently needed. And so we try to model on this show, and I'm always glad to have you on, Paul, the kind of discussion where these points get raised, and then they should be the jumping off point for discussion, not just amongst ourselves, but by the people who are watching the show and should comment below, the video and have debates and meetings and house meetings in the different cities. So thank you for being on again, Paul, and we'll have you back on soon.
Okay, all right.
Okay, good. Thank you.